What's up, guys? Welcome to the Endless Endeavor podcast, and I'm here with my good friend Dave, who requests his last name be left out. We were in the Ranger Regiment together. Dave did military contracting for the agency for a long time, and now he's a firefighter down in Oregon, and he has some pretty good perspectives. He's seen a lot of stuff over the last, what's it been? 3 months or whatever.
Yeah, as far as current events goes. Yeah, it's just interesting to be kind of in and around the area that the news is getting attention, and there is some truth to some things, but like anything in media, it gets sensationalized. So it's kind of cool to have that perspective of like, hey, this is kind of really what my day-to-day is, and it's nothing like what's going on in the news. It's a very small fraction. So,
and I think that's the case on both sides.
Geez,
you watch Fox News.
Yeah.
The entire country is being burned down by Antifa, and you know what I mean. And then if you watch CNN, it's the opposite of that. Yeah. So that's what's interesting about talking to people that are down there doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, like we said before we started recording, you wanted your name left out, and then also your specific agency, because in the world today, and you know, some people might be saying, "Oh, what a pussy! He's not saying."
Well, I am. I'm a big pussy.
Yeah,
so
but I mean,
without saying, of course,
like you said, like yes, freedom of speech is a thing, but you also, there's no point in stirring the pot with your agency or causing issues when you don't have any issues right now going on.
Yeah,
like it's actually better that you come forward and talk about some of the things you've seen and share some of your information from a position that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I personally don't have any issues because I'm very, I don't know, I'm pretty accepting of just what is. And you know, being a little bit older now in the chapter that we're in of our lives, I've just kind of learned to accept certain things to an extent of like, well, it is what it is, man. I could spend energy on that and I can fight that, and it may slow the momentum down like a tick. And at what expense? Like I'm using all of my energy in my life to do that. Or I could just be like, this is how it is. Like, okay. And as far as like where I work, and I don't really have any major complaints, but not everybody views it that way. And so as sensitive as people are with looking for ways to be offended or looking for fuel to, you know, beat their drum or
try and hem you up on something.
Fuck, man. Like, yeah, I don't need that, because right now I'm supporting my family. I transition careers to, you know, some stateside stuff, and I'm like, I'm kind of happy where I'm at, and I don't need somebody misconstruing what I'm saying or taking something to the extreme or labeling me in a way now that is going to go down this road of unbecoming of employee to blah, blah, blah. Like, well, look, I'm not paid. I'm not doing anything, but I just rather just separate myself from that. And, and the same thing goes with the last name too, is like even though we've worked different companies and agencies and stuff over the years, but like, I'd rather just not, it's really not important, like for someone to draw those lines. Like I'm not on social media for that same reason too, man. I like anonymity. I like just being to myself. And
I figured it was because you have a really stupid last name and you're embarrassed about it.
Hey.
I thought that was...
I don't know what you're talking about. My first name is pretty stupid too.
I think...
Not just my stupid face.
I think the whole point of you're willing to invest energy where you feel like you can make a change, and not invest energy in areas where it may come back to bite you, especially when, how far are you moving the needle?
Right.
You know? And I think about that a lot, and I talk about it a lot in relation to politics, because I feel like this election got its hooks back in me again. I didn't give a fuck about politics for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And it was actually refreshing. You know, like I remember when I was young, my dad was super passionate about who the next president was and these fucking liberals, and like mad all the time.
Yeah.
And he died mad all the time with Fox News on in the house. And like, I don't want to be an ostrich with my head in the sand and not know what's going on, not be prepared.
Because information's power, right? Yeah. Like, but just be informed.
It's like everything, there's a balance to it.
Yeah.
And if you let that stuff consume you, if I'm going to let politics consume me, then I should be in politics, right?
Yeah.
I should be trying to be a mayor or work my way up to governor, do something that is actually like investing who I am into it, as opposed to just sitting here scrolling through my Instagram feed, being pissed off,
Right.
just increasing the cortisol in my blood, you know?
Yeah. You know, we're all we define individually what that path is for each of us. So I don't view like, if you want to go down the political road or you want to get fired up by one thing, good, man, right? Like, for me, that's not my journey at the moment. I can get fired up. We can talk about stuff that gets us fired up, and I have fun with it because it's just a part of our world, right? I'm into prepping, right? Like, yeah, prepping. Like, I talked with this guy he literally had this place up in Maine. This is a contractor buddy, and he was trying to figure out a way to how to get those T-wall barriers, like those big cement deals you drop in with a crane, right? Like you see on every fob around. He's like, yeah, so I got this mold, and this is how we're going to make them. And I'm just like, God damn, like,
so he was going to make a perimeter with T-walls?
Total perimeter, right? And so on one hand, I think, wow, that's really cool. I am so unprepared. I know where I'm going, right? But then having conversations with him, he was so consumed in it, and that's cool for him, for his journey. But man, being here, navigating life, figuring out what the fuck we're even here for, right, that's not good for me. And if he needs to do that, then that's great. But I just told him, like, hey man, what are you going to do about the solar flares? What are you going to do about the meteor near miss on the earth if one hits, right? We're all fucking dead anyways. So, like, if that needs to be your journey to prepare in that way, awesome. I'm not to take away from it. And like I said, when shit goes down, I'd be wishing that I was in his position.
Yeah.
But every day, man, my definition of what I want to live for, what I feel like I need to pursue, that's for me. And so with the politics and with what's happening, I do somewhat remove myself, but not in a way where I'm turning a blind eye, like I'm oblivious to it. I don't want to believe, like the ostrich with their head in the sand. It's just more of like just taking it in and realizing that from my position on this planet, I don't know enough to be pessimistic. Like, there's one story that we get on the news. There's one story that we get face to face. There's one story we get here. And that's like, we're trying to make everything fit. We're trying to, like, how can we control this? How can I understand this so I can feel safe and not have fear of the unknown? And as much as you try to do that, you're never going to figure it out. So I'm just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the whole prepper thing, and your fuck it is probably 500 times more prepared than most people's fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, like how many rounds of 5.56 do you have?
Yeah.
How many AR-15s do you have?
Yes.
And
my answer is enough.
Yeah.
That's
enough.
all. I'm just going to leave it at that.
But
correct.
It's like anything that you can take too far.
Yeah.
And I always said, like, I didn't put any thought into prepping or food or like a rally point, things like that until recently.
Yeah.
But even now, I haven't taken it to like the crazy realm. I have a lot of guns. I have a lot of ammo.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking ammo is the most expensive it's ever been.
Yeah.
The 9mm thing that is sitting on the bed next to you was $100.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I get it.
It's ridiculous.
I get it.
But I feel like even before that, I have invested enough time and money and energy into those things that's kind of your foundation.
Yeah.
If shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Where's your comfort level, right? Like you can't go on with your normal day supporting a family, realizing that everything is going to fall on you if shit does turn sour. And you need to just know, like, okay, we're sitting on a good foundation, got enough food, got enough this, got enough that to at least get through whatever initial thing there is and formulate a plan, get the commo thing up.
Yep.
Like your buddy Glover, you guys did that interview, which was actually pretty good, by the way.
That's kind of, I mean, I haven't changed what I'm doing that much, but I did. I got ham radios.
Yeah.
I got the capacity to store a lot of fuel. And then I bought a few months worth of food.
Yeah.
And some water, but we're in Western Washington. Guess what? You're never going to need water.
You're not going to have a problem with water, right?
And other than that,
Yep.
not much has changed, you know?
Well, it's funny you're in safe territory with me, but it's funny because in circles at work, you know, people will list all of the things that they have in preparation, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Where do you live again, man?
Yeah.
What street was that?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm joking, but part of it is serious, man, because if it does get so bad and survival is the issue, then
My kids come before our friendship.
Yeah, you think rioting in the streets over injustices is bad. Like, how about when people are starving? You know, and people
go ahead and look at Mogadishu '93 when they were dropping bags of rice into the streets.
Yeah, good luck.
And armed militia was seizing it. You know, I mean,
yeah, I have a funny story to that point. Unfortunately, it's not mine, and I'll probably botch it. The guy who it happened to knows who he is, but every deployment he would do contracting, you know, would make a ridiculous amount of money, and every trip he would have a purchase towards the end goal of being prepared, you know, usually a firearm or something. And so he went to the local gun shop and waiting for the delivery, and he was like, hey, I'm so and so. Oh yeah, I'll be right back. I'll go get your rifle or whatever he bought. And as he's sitting there waiting for it, there's a couple of guys at the counter. Oh yeah, I'm invested and I've got all this gold, and I'm going to silver, and oh yeah, I've got this and I've got that, and blah 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 blah. You know, and this is what we got, and da 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 da. And they're just talking about all these ways they're prepared, and then so this dude brings out whatever it was he ordered. It's probably some total death dealer of a firearm, and these guys, he told me, he's like, man, these dudes that were talking, their eyes just got real big, and they're looking at it, and you could tell they wanted to talk to me, but they were hesitant. Finally, they built up the courage and was like, excuse me, sir, so what is that thing used for? If you don't mind me asking. He's like, oh yeah, no problem. Well, see, when shit gets really bad, and these other things won't do, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to come to your house, and then he started naming, and I'm going to take your gold and your silver and your food and your ammo and point the other gun. I'm going to take this and this and this, and that's what this thing is going to help me do. And they were just like, and it's like, so he was joking, but in a very serious reality of like, that's how it's going to fucking get. Yeah. So if you have a stash, keep your mouth shut. If, trust your inner circles, take care of yourself.
Yep. And that's another one of Glover's things is like build like a platoon size element of people you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because that gives you the ability to shoot, move, and communicate.
Yeah.
And then you don't really want to get much bigger than that. Because, think about like a company-size element.
Yeah.
Think how hard that would be to have any type of like command over. Especially people that aren't trained, people that haven't worked or trained together. It's in a nightmare.
How about just a formation run?
Yeah.
You know how that was? It was like, okay, we're going to do a battalion run. And you're like, oh my God, dude, it's a constant slinky. And you're either sprinting or you're walking. It never works. It's just too big. You can't fix it. So to your point, yeah, once you start overstretching your boundaries, then it doesn't become effective. And I think that's kind of what, like this empire that we are, you know, the United States of America, like every empire falls. And I think if you look in the course of history, once you outgrow the reaches and you can't do the local tribal government like the Pashto does in Afghanistan, right? Like that's effective for your community. But now you start to try to like spread out and I want my hand in this cookie jar and that cookie jar and I want to control this and control that. Well, now there's no loyalty, there's no allegiance on that local tight-knit level. It's gonna implode.
Yeah,
it's gonna fail.
Well, we're in a weird time in history, just for that very reason. And like you said, like my neighbors, I mean, they're literally 10 feet on the other side of that wall.
Yeah,
and I know his name's George, and I talk to him sometimes when I'm getting the mail.
Yeah.
I know nothing about him though. Like when throughout human history are you sleeping 10 feet from somebody that you know nothing about?
Right.
And he's actually one of the few guys who know his name. The next house down, no idea. Next house down, no idea.
Yeah.
So you have all these unknowns in close proximity.
That's right.
Like, good luck sorting all that shit out when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
I've told this story before on the podcast, but another lady that lived in the neighborhood, like, she came and told me, hey, Brian bought 600 pounds of rice or something like that. You know, I forget.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it's in our garage. I'm like, okay. It's exactly like you said. And I told her, I was like, hey, that's probably not something you should just be spouting off around the neighborhood.
Let's not advertise your resources.
She's like, well, Brian told me to talk to you about it because you have a bunch of guns. We don't have any guns. And I was like, oh, soccer mom's building alliances. That's where we're at. Dude.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that I never understood that too. Like in like the condominium living or apartment living or big city living, like you live in a hallway, you won't know who anybody is. Like,
it's bizarre.
Yeah,
it's outside of the human experience.
Yeah, I think social media also, or maybe not social media, but just like technology in the palm of our hands, having us access the outside world through a device is starting to kind of close ourselves off. Like now we don't have to talk to those neighbors.
I think so too.
And it allows that. So we were just talking, before this earlier of like how even just getting around, people nowadays will, I need to go to the store. I need to go here. And it could be a mile from where they're going, but they're still going to plug those coordinates in or the address or whatever and follow their computer, their little GPS on their phone to get there and not use any thinking of their own. And if you do that your whole life, like you aren't building the skills to operate without that technology.
Yeah. Well, and you said plug in the address or plug in the coordinates. You're giving people way too much credit as is. Like they say,
right.
Hey Siri,
intersection.
Hey Siri, take me to Target.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they don't even have to understand like the address or the physical location or any of that.
Right.
And yeah, we were talking about that right before we started recording. And it's actually scary to see this generation of teenagers trying to understand cardinal directions and how to navigate. And
right.
You can be on the freeway and be like, hey, are we going north or south right now?
Yeah.
Because their brains didn't grow up having to understand where they're at in relation to other things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I used to do cross-country road trips. Me and Jenny did a couple, and she's a TC. She's sitting in the front right with an atlas, and I have my buddy's address in Michigan or wherever, or Colorado, wherever we're going.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to Estes Park, Colorado. This is the address.
Yeah.
And we're in Seattle, Washington. Let's start driving.
Yeah.
And dude, like that's actually a lost art, you know?
Yep.
And in the matter of, I mean, how long have smartphones had GPSs in them? It's 10 years or something?
Yeah.
And figuring out where, or knowing where you're at is a lost art.
The word atlas probably raises some questions just in the general population.
Yeah, like what is he talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
No, and I kept an atlas in my trunk. That was part of my fucking equipment, you know?
Yeah.
And it had like an overview of the states, and then each state had its own like 2-page spread.
Yeah.
So you could really get dialed in wherever you needed to go.
Well, and that comes from the standpoint of contingencies. Like when we didn't have a cell phone growing up, if you run into a problem, there wasn't this thing to rescue you in the palm of your hand, right? It was, okay, well, where are we going to meet? Well, if I don't show up there at this time that we've already pre-designated, how are you going to find me? How am I going to get there, right? Like we've created this as kids of like, okay, be here by this time. And then if they're not, now you start looking, okay, then these are the other hard points or whatever it is, right? But nowadays, that's not even in our vocabulary or even just meeting somebody. Yeah, like this is what we used to do. We used to just pick a time and meet.
Yeah.
Next week, and that's what we would do.
That's and the other part of that needed a high level of importance put on it was we needed to follow that timeline.
Yep.
Because if I'm supposed to meet you here at 5 and it's 5:20 and you're not here, okay, now we have a problem.
Yeah.
But now, because I can just send you a text, hey, bro, I'm actually grabbing a coffee and then I had to stop and take a shit. Like people are a lot less likely to adhere to a timeline.
Right.
And it's funny because growing up like we did as kids, like you said, I mean, you may be 7 years old on your bike, but you're talking about like a 5-point contingency plan.
Right.
And when we got into the regiment, that's part of operating.
Yeah.
Like, and so that felt normal, you know?
Yep. Or even in the hybrid day of like when you could look online for directions, MapQuest, right?
Yep.
You could get step by step, turn by turn instructions to go where you're going. So that would go on a piece of paper, print it. And then I'm going, okay, well, I'm going to be on this road for how long? 3 miles. Okay. So you look at your little odometer, 3 miles. I should see the turnabout now. Okay, cool. Like nobody thinks to do that nowadays, but I think it's good though that we're even having this conversation because we're raising children. And if we have the wherewithal to understand that is something, that is a skill, and we're passing that along, then at least that information is still going to be there whether they use it or not. I find that way, like cardinal directions, you know, just getting in that aspect, or having the kid like, hey, there's no phone here. How do you get a hold of me?
Yeah.
Well, what's my phone number? How do you even get access to a phone? Well, you're going to have to talk to another human being for one.
Yeah. Remember pulling over at gas stations?
Oh, yeah. Pay phones, that stuff, calling, collect, you know, calling cards, all that stuff. Yeah, man.
Well, and that's what started this whole conversation is I'm attempting to purchase 30 acres of remote woods outside of Granite Falls right now.
Yep.
Your property is backed up to thousands of acres of BLM,
and
which is
not Black Lives Matter.
No. There's not like there's not protests and riots going on out there.
No, actually, it's funny because I'd be driving around and see all this BLM stuff spray painted, and I was like, wow, man, Bureau of Land Management's really getting after this marketing. It goes right over people's heads. They have no idea what I'm talking about.
But yeah, we were talking about using, because you're down in Oregon, so we were talking about using these pieces of property that we have access to, or hopefully that I gain access to.
Oh yeah.
And setting up some basic land nav courses for like the boys. And I mean, even my daughters, they'll get to a point where 9, 10, 11, like it's time to start teaching them about just knowing where you're at in relation to other things.
And even, and the other thing too, like our kids are lacking confidence, you know, like there's online bullies and there's all these shit talkers and internet trolls and all that, right? And it could fuck with a kid's sense of self-worth during their most impressionable years. Well, teach them a skill that takes the mystery out of where you are at any time ever.
Yeah.
You will never get lost.
Yep.
You will always know where you're going to be. So even if they always have a GPS and they always have technology to get them where they're going to go,
it's a peace of mind.
In their back of their head, they know, hey, I can get through this. I have this survival skill. I know where I'm going. And that would help that confidence to wherever they might need it, you know? So I think that would be fun, man. We should set that up, and I'm looking to maybe set something up like that. Obviously, we'll keep it fun. It won't be, you know, if you miss your point, you got to do push-ups or whatever, low crawl to the next one. You know? I don't know. There might be some advantages to that, but
no, it's interesting because talking about all the preparedness stuff, in its core, the way that you can be most prepared is having a strong mindset, having strong navigational skills, having a high level of physical fitness.
Yep.
And the things that you can't purchase at a store, it's things you have to do to your mind and your body.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to carry you. I had a guy, because I mean, I'm pretty open about talking about the potential for another
going
revolution.
Both ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
you never know.
Yeah.
Revolutionary war. People call it another civil war.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more of a revolutionary war because everybody's fed up with the government, right?
Yeah. I stole that, by the way. I used that in conversation the other day, and it instantly struck a chord with, you know, they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is against the tyranny of the government that's holding us.
Yeah.
So, no, that's
and so I've talked about that pretty openly on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was referencing fitness because I did a really hard workout and I threw up, and then I said something about like it's combat preparedness. And one of the comments, I'll never forget this. He goes, "Hey, this isn't Game of Thrones anymore. We're not fighting with swords. You don't need a high level of fitness to be effective." And I'm like, dude, you've obviously never done any type of operating because going up 3 flights of stairs to get a rooftop position to try and get a vantage point with full kit.
Yeah.
And your water ran out 2 hours ago.
Yep.
Like the simplest of tasks, once you're carrying more equipment and you're doing it for days on end, like it's all fitness related.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You know, if you think you're going to be 30 pounds overweight out in the woods, IMT or individual movement techniques, you know,
like, how many acronyms can we have today?
Bounding to pieces of cover, right. or even just digging in and trying to put in a clandestine like OP or something. Like all that stuff is taxing on your body.
Well, and the very situation, not just taxing on your body, but being able to operate uncomfortably. Mm-hmm. So being comfortable with not being comfortable, I guess. I don't know how to best to put it, but I've found that
finding comfort in uncomfortable situations. I talk about that a lot.
Yeah. Dude. And fitness and pushing yourself to the point of throwing up, to where now, you know, the tunnel's closing in. And still thinking, still functioning. It doesn't matter if you got an AR-15 or a sword or whatever, man. Like that's something that you need to have, because you will be ineffectual with what you're doing the second your adrenaline's pumping. You're like, oh shit, someone's trying to kill me. Like just that right there, someone's trying to kill me. That fight or flight thing could spark so much that's going to happen with your freaking what is that? What system is it? Like your adrenal system or something, or your
lymphatic?
Your lymphatic system. So like, just that dump of everything right there. Like, good luck just freaking picking up a pen off a table, let alone hunkering in, picking up a sight picture, making a decision to like, do we stay? Do we go? What's my family got to do? So like, you don't have to be some world renowned athlete, but at the same time, you need to be able to pull your own weight.
Yeah, and dude, like, I had a commercial burglary when I was a patrol officer, and it was inside this giant warehouse south of Seattle. Yeah. The building is 10 acres. It's ridiculous, right? And so, I mean, if you have a commercial audible alarm, you're clearing that building. So
3 days later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And dude, it was me and 2 other officers.
Yeah.
And one officer was pretty experienced, and then the other was pretty new. And he kept saying like, man, like what's the best way to take this building down? I said, bro, there's 3 people. This is a company-sized element.
Yeah.
If you were taking this, if this was an enemy objective in Afghanistan or Iraq, you would have 100 people assaulting this building. We have 3. So the reality of it is, we're not going to be able to fucking secure, you know what I mean? We'll clear and move, but then the ground behind us, it's no longer secure.
Nope.
So we can clear it as best we can and call it good. Could they be circling back around us and maintaining a position in the building? They could, right? Yeah. So it ended up taking like 2 hours. Bro, smoked.
Yeah.
Walking around for 2 hours with an AR-15.
Yeah.
Looking around every corner, looking in every dead space.
Yeah.
And doing what you can do with 3 people. And I remember thinking like, dude, clearing buildings used to be like what I did.
Yep.
And here we are 20 years later, and I'm still in pretty good shape, but I'm not actively holding a rifle for 2 hours at a time.
Yeah.
And it fucking ruined me, dude.
Dude, just, so we would call them ready ups, right? And my old squad leader, shout out Sergeant Boyning. He's out there. He's probably not listening to this stuff. He's out in the woods somewhere.
Certainly listening.
But he would drill shit to death, to the point where we could not stand him. Like, we loved him and we hated him. And just a simple ready up drill is where you're standing there. You've got your rifle at a low ready position, and meaning like you're not aimed in on a target, but you're kind of ready. And then you go up, and then you get on your sights and you take the selector off of safe. And we would do that forever. And it would smoke your shoulders holding a 7-pound rifle, poor saw gunners or 2 or 3 gunners, right? Like, fuck, they're fucked. But you would do that. And
every morning.
And that was just hard. And we're not even shooting. We're not even running or gunning. But you're like, holy cow, this is a workout all here. Now you're going to clear a 10-acre building. And then you've got in the back of your head, like, hey, this is a real deal. I'm not standing here just working one muscle group. Like, I'm constantly have my senses heightened, all of them. And when you operate at that level all the time, you can't maintain effectiveness that whole time.
You know, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got for CQB environment was every corner you clear, every dead space you clear, you tell yourself, this is where the guy's going to be.
Yeah.
Like literally every single corner.
Yeah.
Hey, anytime you're pieing, anytime you're flowing into a room, you have to tell yourself, this is the room he's in.
Yeah.
This is the corner he's around.
Yeah.
That way, because dude, I don't care who you are. If you're even in a training environment, let alone like that was a real world op, even though I'm sure we were looking for methed out heroin users that are trying to pull the copper wire out of the ceiling.
Right.
But still, I don't want to be startled or surprised when I see that person. And if you anticipate someone around every corner, then when you see him, it's like, yeah, I was right. That was the corner he was around.
Yeah.
And it feels normal as opposed to, okay, here's another one. Okay, here's another one. Okay, here's another. Oh shit, fun. You know?
Well, I run into that on the firefighting side of things is I'll still be on crews because I would say I'm still a new guy, so I just kind of float around. I fill holes.
That's what we do. We fill holes.
Fill holes. But so I get to work with a whole bunch of different crews, different experiences, different mentalities on the job, and I've been on some fires where we get there and house is burning, and then you get the attitude like, oh, would you look? Oh wow, oh okay. Now I'm like, that's
why we're here.
That's the job, right? Like it's probably going to be burning and we're going to put it out. Like it's not rocket science. But you get in that position of complacency. Oh, not here, not here. So then when it shows up, you're not mentally prepared for it. And now you're already behind.
And that's a hard line to walk because I know a lot of patrol officers will say like the same thing with traffic stops. When you're approaching the car, you have to tell yourself, this is the person that's going to kill me. Right?
Yeah.
And so like, man,
that's tough.
I did plenty of traffic stops.
Right.
Where I probably could have got shot.
Yeah.
Because it's a balance, right? If I'm approaching every car, like that's a potential enemy combatant.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to have the kind of interaction with them that person deserves.
Right.
Right? Because if I'm pulling them over because their tabs expired last month, the interaction should be positive.
Which I'm sure you never did because you're a total doucher if you'd have to do that.
Oh, I'll tell you what. I pulled over lots of people for that. Guess how many tickets I wrote? 0.
Got it.
Dude, after I got off of like probation or training where like, I need to see you write a ticket for 10 over.
Yeah.
So then you do it and you just feel like a douchebag because you ruined some dude's day for nothing. So I made a commitment to myself after that. I will never write another ticket unless it's something egregious.
Yeah.
If some dude's going 70 through a school zone, hey, motherfucker, you're putting people's lives at risk.
Yeah.
And I think that in its conception was what traffic laws were based around. We need to keep the community safe, so don't go this fast.
Yeah.
Make sure you signal when you're turning so you don't get in a collision. Don't run red lights because you could hurt someone. Not, hey, I got this guy for 5 over. Let's get him for $136. Go to the state of Washington. That's bullshit, dude. Yeah. And so I never did it. Never wrote one ticket after that.
Yeah. You took the premise of you have the ability to use discretion and apply that discretion in a way to where you can assess if someone else is imposing their will on someone that doesn't want it to be imposed on. For example, dude speeding through 70 through a school zone. That kid doesn't have a fucking choice. He's crossing the road, right?
Yeah.
And he gets hit by this asshole. Well, now it's your job to make sure the asshole doesn't dictate how the thing is going to go for the bystander. And that can be an effective means. Write a ticket, stop him, whatever. You're like, hey, man, hey, asshole. $300, man. If this doesn't get your attention, that you can kill a kid, maybe paying $300 will. Like, fucking slow it the fuck down.
And that's the whole point of it, you know?
Right.
But the agency still has, I mean, it's different for every agency, but my agency did have an expectation that we'd be out doing traffic stops, contacting the public, letting them know that we're out there watching and being proactive police officers.
Yeah.
But they had zero expectation on enforcement. Because if you put expectations on enforcement, now you're telling people to go find something.
Yeah.
And I think that puts people in a weird position, because if you're telling me that you're expecting me to write this many tickets, you're basically saying, make sure you find this many people doing these things. Yeah. And let's be honest, dude, like, that's not realistic. I'm out there, I'm patrolling, I find what I find. You can't tell me what I need to be looking for and then what I need to be enforcing, because it's all based just on randomness.
Stop applying your logic to how we need to treat other human beings and operate in a work environment. No, like if one ticket is good and you catch one speeder, then 100 is better.
Yeah.
So let's just make 100 and not think about anything else.
But because my department did have expectations on traffic stops, but not on enforcement, I would pull people over all the time for equipment malfunctions or expired tabs.
Yeah.
And immediately they're like, you could just see their face. I pulled you over for burned out taillight. And they're like, oh, fuck, here it goes. And then I would immediately follow that up with, just so you know, I'm not writing you a citation for this. I'm just letting you know, because guess what? Most people don't PMCS their vehicles and check all their signals every day. You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck knows if they have a brake light out?
PMCS, pre-mission, what is it? Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, no shit.
It's checking. It's basically what we used to do in the regiment, to check your vehicle, make sure your fuel was topped off, make sure everything was functioning properly, and your transmission fluid and your oil and everything.
We need a nifty acronym for it too. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the military.
Remember, the regiment would make us PMCS our personal vehicles.
Yeah,
they'd come out there, and I forget if it was quarterly or whatever, but they'd be like, "All right, Private Anderson, take a seat in your car. Okay, hit your brakes. Brakes are good. Left turn signal, right turn signal."
Yeah.
And just a little bit of proactiveness to make sure that your personal equipment was operating properly. When's the last time you had your wife get in her car and say, "All right, babe, hit the brakes. Oh, yep, both your brake lights are working. Left signal, right signal." I mean, we just don't, at least me, we just don't do that anymore.
Yesterday. Before we hit the road, dude. I'm like, all right.
Dude, you're serious too, huh?
Yeah.
That's funny, dude.
Yeah, dude. That's the kind of stuff. I think we were in regiment during an interesting time, and it was pre 9/11, post 9/11, right? Like that gap.
Yeah, we were there for the transition, which was huge.
Yep, and we got to see some changes in how things operate, and it would be interesting to have one of our buddies who's still in, who's gone through the ranks, enlisted, and he'd be a good person to really map out all those changes.
Shout out Bohannon.
Yeah. And but that's one of those things, like, you know, PCMS or what the fuck was it? Your private vehicle or whatever. Pre-combat, whatever. Anyways, so that's something you would do, like, hey, we're not training to go kill motherfuckers, and we need some other level of control and to make up some extra shit to do, and hence a lot of the hazing and some of the ridiculous stuff we would spend our time on, you know, buffing the floors and shit that, like, look, we've already got discipline. Let's be effective here.
Well, people think, like, when you hear Army Ranger, that you are just training to kill people 24/7. And I mean, it's the same with the SEAL teams or anything that falls under the special operations. It's like, yeah, training is a huge part of what you do.
Yeah.
But there'd be whole weeks where it's like, hey, this is a down week. Get your dental checked. Yep. Make sure your vehicles are good. Hit CIF, like all the admin stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to do that.
Yeah, man. Logistics is, it's a real thing.
And hey, you remember the days where it was like an admin day and we're not doing anything cool and everybody had everything taken care of by 1300, and they'd be like, all right, well, just sit in the squad room until first sergeant releases us for the day. And first sergeant wouldn't release us until 1800.
Yeah.
And so you're literally sitting in a squad room telling dick jokes and grappling each other.
Yep.
And just doing a bunch of nonsense for literally 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
That was a normal day in Ranger Regiment.
Yep. It was for us, especially as a private. Like, holy shit. Like, you pass all these things, you know, you get this label, you go through all these selection processes, and then you get to regiment. Like, wow, I'm an Army Ranger. I've got that title. And then you're looking lower than dog shit. You're a private regiment. right? And you're like, holy fuck, dude. What did I get myself into? What a crazy rite of passage, man.
I think that those days are pretty much behind us now, though.
Yeah.
Like when you show up to a regiment now, they're building war fighters.
It makes sense, man.
Because it's a different army.
So,
you know,
we went to, I don't know if it was the last rendezvous, but not too long ago, you and I met up at Ranger Rendezvous with a number of our friends, and it was for Bohannon's promotion. And I don't know if you noticed, but when you looked around at the new age Rangers, I could call her today's Rangers, it was different. It was different even on just like, say, a fitness level, right? Like we were a bunch of dudes who were like, man, if you could run one day, then if you ran 5 days, that'd be better.
Yeah.
We're not running the 5th day, but we're going to ruck. Well, my squad leader had a freaking, one of his steps was 3 of mine. So guess what? I'm running with the fucking ruck, right? So what was happening? Mentally hard, right? But as far as physically training, it was really stupid. Like there wasn't built-in rest. We weren't very an effective war fighting machine on the fitness level, or as much as we could have been. Don't get me wrong, right? Like, but now
they're approaching special operations like professional athletes now.
Exactly. Like just the gyms in general, man.
Yeah.
It's all this functional strength. Nutritionists. I look at these guys, like none of them are eating carbs. Like it's all just meat and veggies and all this shit. And they're becoming this well morphed and oiled machine. So it's like, wow, regiment's changing on many fronts. And that's good, man. That's a thing that we didn't see. Maybe some folks did it individually, but the mentality was, I have rank. I know what's better for you. This is how it always was done, and this is how we're going to do it.
Or this is what worked for me.
Yeah.
So like, and obviously you can't prescribe a different fitness routine for everybody in your squad. You kind of have to go through that together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, fitness is different for different people.
Yeah.
And then they also realized that combat fitness and what we were doing were 2 different things.
Yep.
Now there were like, if you talk to the Rangers that were like on Roberts Ridge, where they had to assault up a mountain in 4 feet of snow. Yeah. That's going to take like long-term high cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
So those long runs and those long road marches, there's no substitution for that stuff.
No, man.
But the other side of it is that you saw, especially in like Fallujah and Ramadi, is like fully kitted up. You got 10 mags on you. You got your med pouch. You got your Camelback. You're probably, without a rucksack on, you're still probably weighing 55 pounds over your walking around weight.
Yep.
And now you're expected to like sprint across a street.
Jump a wall,
drag a Ranger buddy down 2 flights of stairs and throw them in an evac vehicle. Like all of these things, they started to realize like, oh, that's more of a CrossFit style.
Yeah.
Like intervals of really high intensity movements followed by, okay, I can chill out. I can catch my breath. Boom. Let's go again. You know? And that was the Ranger mission in the urban environment.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's cool. It's cool to see where it's wound up. And, man, and it's fun, like, thinking back. But, yeah, dude, it really blew me away at Rendezvous, seeing that. And I was like, man, what my experience would have been like had I gone into regiment 10 years after. And even post 9/11, like, you know, our initial deployment, you remember the whole, okay, so for those that aren't familiar, like, there's always, like, regiment prided themselves in, there's always one battalion that's ready.
Yep. Okay,
so like
RF1.
The president needs you, your country needs you. Here's this button. Boom, right? Well, so there's a rotation of who gets deployed, which battalion's going. And in 2nd Battalion, I want to say we got skipped or something happened where we didn't go to Afghanistan when we should have. And 3rd Bat went. They're like at the flagpole, right? It's like everyone that's wargaming and making the plans, like they want their boys. They don't want to share it, right? There's all this fucking, whose dick is bigger kind of deal.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit for listeners though, because 3rd Ranger Battalion and 75th Ranger Regiment headquarters are co-located in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Correct.
So if you're the commander of 3rd Battalion or you're the sergeant major of 3rd Battalion,
Yeah.
you can walk across the street and be having coffee with the regimental commander.
Right.
And so it's inevitable that those guys are going to have better relationships than 2nd Battalion's commander.
Yep.
And so we always used to say, like, 3rd Bat's at the flagpole so they get the good missions. Part of it was kind of just like ball busting. But then as you watch things unfold, 3rd Battalion did continuously get high-speed missions.
Right.
You know?
And by high speed, we mean jumping into Kandahar when the actual, like, real mission was going on up north, and they killed maybe, like, 2 dudes on the objective or something? Like some janitor. I don't know. I wasn't there. But
bro, I've talked about that on this show a lot because we were supposed to be part of the invasion.
Right.
And then we got pulled last minute.
Yep.
And even though it wasn't, like, the combat that everybody was hoping for, just fucking jumping out of an airplane and slaughtering a bunch of terrorists.
That's what you prepare for, right?
It's still, it's still the notoriety of being part of that main effort and jumping in and securing that airfield. I mean, truth be told, and I've talked to them like close buddies, CAG and SF had already been in country for like 3 weeks or a month.
Yeah.
They were there immediately afterwards.
Yeah, dude.
I was talking to one of my unit buddies. It's like, oh yeah, my team, they just dropped us off. We had 4-wheelers, and we're just going wherever the fuck we wanted, setting in OPs, doing what we wanted.
Yeah,
they
fighting age male, execute.
Dude, yeah, and they were actually given a mission to oversee the jump into Rhino.
Oh,
they're like, yeah, we knew Rhino was going down, and we were like the ground effort. We were already there. And you hear that, it's like, God damn it.
Yeah, dude.
You know,
well,
but that's what you get for being in the high speed units. You know,
we had to do when everyone else was going over there and we were getting skipped or pushed or whatever. Do you remember we did like a dog and pony show at Bragg, and Bush, George W. was coming through, and he was seeing a demonstration of special ops. And we took like a Mount site, and Little Birds were there, and there's all these different units that we did like this deal. And after the demonstration, which is a total like Hollywood blank firing and all this shit, we got to eat lunch with the president, right? We're in a tent. We all shook his hand. He's coming by, and every time he came by, shout out Doc Poe. After Bush went by, shook his hand, and I was like, God damn, man, like, I thought he would have a better handshake than that, right? And then gets to Doc Poe. What's he say? Something to the effect of like...
He goes, that's a pretty weak handshake, sir.
Yeah. No shit. Everybody.
And George Bush, without missing a beat, looks at him and goes, he goes, it's understandable that I don't have the handshake of a Ranger.
Yeah. Which was like, all right,
yeah,
man.
he just owned it. He's like, I guess I don't have the handshake of a Ranger.
Right.
And just kind of laughed it off.
But in those handshakes, he was like, what can I do for you boys? Like, send us, sir. We got skipped. And then he was looking at, I don't want to say USASOC General Brown, maybe a 3-star. I don't fucking know. It's 20 years ago, dude. But he's like, well, these boys are obviously ready. We're going to send them. And we got home from that trip, and then we had a date.
Yeah.
You remember that? And it's just like all of a sudden, like, oh, look at that. It was just like, it's not who you know, it's who you blow kind of a deal, dude. And it's like, now we're going to Afghanistan. But we were going to Afghanistan. This is what I mentioned, why it would be interesting to go 10 years after, to when we had no history of combat hardened or combat experience in our ranks. Like maybe a couple dudes.
None.
Yeah, none. Like maybe 1 or 2 people from Panama, right? But Panama wasn't an extended operation.
Here's the thing. You had the sergeant major who had been to Grenada, which was 1983, also isolated incident that just lasted a very short amount of time.
Yep.
Then you had a handful of high-level leadership, like first sergeant and above, that jumped into Panama.
Yep.
And then we had one guy who fought in the streets of Mogadishu in Charlie Company. All right. So that's one combat veteran amongst the like platoon level guys. Yeah. And that was it. And even in all those missions, even as rough as Mogadishu was and how much like fighting that was, it was like an isolated operation. You're in and you're out. Yeah. Now they were there for several months. I shouldn't say that, but it's not the continuous combat, right? Like the regiment faced for the 2 decades that followed.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, that was a part of, me after my enlistment. I'm like, I'm fucking done, dude. Like, I enjoyed my time, but the way regiment was operating in those early years was not at the full potential of what could be done in it. I think it took time, and that's why it'd be interesting talking to Bohannon, maybe if you saw the switch, because I remember talking to him one day years after and finding out how now they got their own target packages. It's just like, hey, like we finally...
No, regiment grew up, and they... so initially, a lot of the combat operations, we would support the unit.
Right.
And we wanted to support the unit because the CAG guys were like cream of the crop. And if they say, hey, we need you for a blocking position.
Fuck yeah.
Or we need you for a perimeter. Like, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. The CAG guys want to work with us. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening for years, from what I understand, even after we got out, is like they would get the HVT package, the high value target.
Yep.
And then we would be used to just augment the mission. And it's like, dude, I don't want to be an Army Ranger for 2 enlistments and just augment other people's missions.
No.
So, yeah, talking to Bohannon, he said the same thing. They kind of grew up and started to get their own target packages, and they were the main effort. And dude, that's what it's all about, you know? And I think, I would say probably, I don't know, 2006 to 2012 was like high op tempo of Rangers out doing good missions.
Yeah. Yeah, which is badass, man. I mean, how many dudes stayed in during our, or well, even if they stayed in the military, how many stayed in regiment?
None.
Right? Like, how many moved on?
Like one.
Yeah.
It was Bohannon. You know? Like, and I tell people all the time, man, the Ranger Regiment, in my opinion, and again, it's changed now. So this might be archaic advice.
Yeah.
But the Ranger Regiment is a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
From private to sergeant, that's a good spot to build your military foundation.
Well, not even grow up militarily, but like there was a time, this was before, because when I went in, there was not the SF baby contract, meaning you can sign up for the Army and go into a, get the track to be a Green Beret, right? To go to selection, go to the Q course, jump school, all that stuff. Like, that wasn't in existence because, to my understanding, you got to be an NCO for one.
Yeah, you had to have a full enlistment.
Right. And you're not going to be an NCO at 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
So there was no contract to like fast track you to SF. So the only real place as a private that you can be involved in the special ops community was Ranger Regiment with a RIP contract. So, and I know you talked about that at length with one of your first episodes, but not only are you growing up in the military, but dude, you're 17, 18 years old. You're still figuring your shit out.
You're still figuring everything out.
Everything out, man. I'm still fucking figuring it out, dude. And happy birthday, by the way, dude. I'm pushing 40, right? And so I'm like still figuring it out. And but the regiment did still have that. And I would also recommend it too for those that are going in there, and not just so much to grow, but like if you're going to join a place where you can get whacked and you got to rely on the dude to your left and right.
Exactly.
You want someone that wants to fucking be there.
Somebody that's putting in the effort to cover your 6.
Yeah.
I talk about that all the time. If you want to be a warfighter, why do you want to be part of a unit that a decent amount of the guys are shitbags?
Yeah.
You talk to like the straight leg infantry units, like, and dude, I don't say this like disparagingly because there's a lot of studs.
Yeah.
In 3rd ID.
Yeah.
In 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff, right? There's a lot of studs in those units doing good shit.
Yeah.
But the truth of them is they can't get rid of their shitbags. So if you got 1 or 2 guys that's like a cancer in your platoon, guess what? He's there to stay. And that was one of the best things in Ranger Regiment. It's like, hey, you're not fitting the billet.
Yep.
We don't want you. We don't like you around here. Goodbye. And then they'd send you down the road. That's what we literally called it. He's going down the road. The 3rd ID.
3rd ID.
And now another platoon is stuck with that guy.
My brother enlisted, younger brother, and right around the time, right before the invasion of Iraq in 03, and he, for whatever reason, I was trying to guide him to get a RIP contract or do something that gives you at least a chance to try out, because I understood that about regular Army. Like, you're going to be left and right of dudes that don't really give a fuck. They don't want to be there. They ain't going to cover your ass. And that's what you want. So for whatever reason, man, he went down his path. He wound up in 3rd ID for the invasion, right? And saw some shit as an infantryman in the invasion. You know, they had ROE like, so every white SUV is the enemy. Okay.
Bro, the ROEs,
dude,
the ROEs were ridiculous.
Right. So he goes, you know, he obviously survived that deployment, got back. And the point of the story was that one of his dudes, and I may botch some of it, but the moral was one of the guys went AWOL from the unit. And they're like, fuck, where the fuck is Smith?
In country?
No, here. At,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
No, he went AWOL back in the States. And they're like, where's this dude? I don't know. And my brother, I think, was rooming with another guy, and he's like, hey, man, you know where fucking whoever Smith was or whatever? And he's like, I don't fucking know. He's asking me, like, Jesus Christ, dude, like, settle down. Well, he was so touchy about it because it turns out his roommate, along with maybe like 2 or 3 other dudes, got that guy who went AWOL out to go drink some beers, got him drunk, and fucking murdered him, stabbed him to death, and then burnt his body and buried him at like back at some range at fucking Benning because they were afraid that dude was going to spill the beans on some kind of like war crime or some shit like that, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, holy shit, dude. Like, snitches get stitches. I get it, right? Like, I get it. So that's a whole nother subject. But at the same
Why'd they burn him, though?
yeah, why'd you burn him? Is that out of fucking spite?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same reason, like, maybe they didn't think things through, like the second bat guys that robbed the bank. Like, tactically, they hit it awesome, but, like, it got back to him because someone used
They had a license plate on their car.
On their, like, dad's van they borrowed or something.
Come on, guys. Yeah, it's ridiculous, man.
But
you know, I talked to somebody, I forget who it was in the law enforcement world, that's like, we watched those guys take that bank down.
Yeah.
And he goes, all of our efforts, 100% went right to Fort Lewis.
Yeah.
We are looking for military members because they flowed in, they cleared their corners. Like, you're not going to get fucking 6 dudes or whatever, 3 dudes, whatever. I don't even remember what it was.
Yeah.
To go do something like that.
Yeah, some Call of Duty training and
you know,
pull that off. Yeah.
That's fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah. It was kind of smart though. Like one of them, I think, fled to Canada. And he was saying
seeking asylum,
and the reason this was the stretch. The reason they did that was because it would get media attention because money. We're all driven to stories of money, and he was trying to bring attention to some bogus shit that was going down overseas, and that was going to be the way in which they did it. And I was like, all right, man, I'll give it to you. It's a stretch, but
well, because
dude.
If you're seeking political asylum,
yeah,
then Canada can refuse the extradition.
Oh, there you go. So that's more the case.
And I'll tell you what,
good on them.
Yeah, I don't remember how that played out actually.
Yeah, neither do I. It'd be good.
Maybe we should Google it.
But hey, man, we're bullshitting a bunch. I wanted to tell you that. So this new and improved Greg, you know, I'm listening to these podcasts, and one, it's funny because I'm sharing a lot of similar stories, but the things that you're talking about and conclusions that you're coming to as a father, as a husband, you know, you've got all these stories, combat veteran, all this shit, right? But there's some parallels that I keep seeing. I'm like, fuck, dude, he's dealing with that, and he's being very open about it, and are very vulnerable, and like throwing like, hey man, I'm dealing with this mental health deal, or I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that, and I find myself listening and going, fuck, dude, we need to fucking talk about that because that isn't being addressed, or that is getting swept under the rug, or you know, vet suicide is a problem, and I kind of like this new Greg version, man, because I mean we've known each other for fucking 20 years, dude, and which is crazy to even say, right?
I know.
And there was something throughout all that time, even though we were young, we're still trying to figure our shit out. Like I feel like I could always have a conversation that was maybe a little more normal than with my other Ranger buddies. For example, if there would be a breakup, you know, or some kind of relationship, you know, fuck up, which
we all went through as Rangers.
All went through, right?
Yeah.
You were probably one of the only people that understood and could actually have the conversation with that did not involve fuck that bitch. Because that's normally that's a safe conclusion to come to, and it is very, very useful, right, to get through it.
Well, and that's but it's also I'm bottling up my emotions and she can fuck off.
Right.
That's not going through the emotional turmoil that caused you and kind of like unpacking that and feeling that emotion.
Right.
And dude, that was Young Ranger 101. You're not there to feel.
Right.
If you feel, you're a bitch.
Yeah.
Like you're there we're here to kill.
Yeah, man.
What makes the grass grow? Blood.
Yeah,
and all that's cool, right? And there's a reason, and I don't know if the machine is necessarily like built this into making Rangers as part of like an understood curriculum, or if it's just the lifestyle. But the regiment has you for 4 years, unless you re-enlist, right? They don't have time to try and help you become in touch with your emotional side. They have 4 years to train you up, get a couple deployments under your belts, try and get you to kill some bad guys, and then you're out, right?
Yeah. Well, dude, I can't unpack 40 years of figuring out fucking emotions and feelings, right? Like how we're brought up as men. How the fuck's the military going to do it in 4 years?
Yeah, of course.
And so it's really easy to just equate like feeling and emotions can cause hesitation on the battlefield. Hesitation will get you killed. Hesitation will get your team killed. So we're going to push past that, which honestly
you need,
and it's effective. And so to act like it's not useful, I don't think is fair, man. Like I wouldn't want my training to be any different because I think our survival depends on it. You know?
And if you see some bad shit one day on patrol, guess what? Come tomorrow, you're going out on patrol again.
Yeah.
So if you're carrying that with a heavy heart and it's affecting you to be able to go back out on the streets,
right,
you're making yourself combat ineffective just because of emotional turmoil. So, I mean, there's a reason why you suck it up and drive on.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
that was one of our main mottos: suck it the fuck up, Ranger up, and drive on.
Drink water, take a knee, face out, take Motrin. What
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like just it's time. We're here to get after it, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, like I went through a period of time and it was 2016, 2017, where I'd moved home from California, up on my jiu-jitsu academy. Financially, I was struggling. My relationship with my wife was struggling.
Yep.
Things with the kids were tough. And for a guy that usually has solutions to problems, like I feel like throughout my adult life, I'm pretty good at problem solving and coming up with solutions.
Yep.
And I was finding myself just continuously hitting the same wall. And I couldn't get over it and I couldn't get under it. And I started to get dark, man. And I'm like, dude, what is this life about? Like day in and day out, I'm feeling more pain than pleasure. And at what point has the scales tipped so bad that if I'm not enjoying this experience of what you call life, an exit plan starts to become something that creeps into the back of your mind.
Right.
And I didn't fucking tell anybody this shit except like a counselor.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, I had 2 teammates kill themselves.
Yeah.
And then I had a third that went through a real bad problem and almost came to that same conclusion. And dude, after that, I was like, you know what? I'm fucking 38 years old. I went through this personally.
Yep.
Now I've lost 2 teammates, almost a third. What the fuck why are we not talking about this?
Right.
Why are we ashamed of it?
Yep.
I mean, and these are some of the toughest men I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what's going on?
Well, we're forced, and this is where like, so I've gone down that like philosophical path, right? Of, okay, there is something more to it. What's up here? What are the tools? Why am I missing this? Why is this hard, right? Why is being in a relationship or dealing with somebody outside of myself who I love, family, friends, significant others, why is this so hard when I've conquered being an Army Ranger? Some of the hardest shit that I've ever gone through, go into combat, fucking go into these selection processes. Why is this thing beating me? Because that's really kind of what it comes down to. And I think, I'm not a psychologist, and this is why I was interested just to talk to you, man, because in my pursuit of like finding that answer, it kind of like starts having me reflect back on how we're conditioned in the military, and even further back than that, right? Like, so it's easy for us to see how we're conditioned in the military to make us good fighting, effective force, right? Like, fuck emotions, fuck this, you're gonna die. These are the skills you need to complete the mission. But once the mission's over, those tools that we have don't necessarily translate well to being in a loving relationship or even figuring your own shit out on the outside world when you're not in combat, right? It's like we don't have the tools. So the things that we fall back on tend to have this false sense of, if I just keep driving on, keep sucking it up, one foot in front of the next, I'm going to get through this, I'm going to figure this out. But some of this shit is rooted deep, dude. And I think it takes an open mind to really look at ourselves and realize that something in our belief system might be fucked. And it's until we do that, I don't think we'll find any solutions, because we're still trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. I'm still trying to drive on and do this and do that. Well, when you're out of the military, we're not in combat, when you just let your marriage go to shit, or now you're divorced and your kids don't want to fucking talk to you. Like, guess what? All that formula doesn't work.
Your problem solving formula is flawed if you're trying to apply the suck it up and drive on mentality,
right,
or the shoot, move, and communicate mentality,
right,
to raising a 3-year-old daughter. and bro, I've said a lot throughout my life. Like, with my first daughter, I was a stay-at-home dad because I was making that transition from the military life to becoming a deputy. And that was a long process. So Jenny was working and I was staying home with the baby. And I remember looking at her and she's screaming at the top of her lungs. Okay, well, fuck, dude. What does she want? I'll heat up some breast milk that mama pumped. Throws it on the ground, right? Oh, fuck, do you want an avocado? Cut that up. Just like screams and throws that on the ground. Oh, maybe she wants a nap. And like, I'm going through all these things that a baby might possibly want.
The baby troubleshoot manual, the Haynes diagram, chapter 1.
Yeah, dude. And nothing was working. And it's at that moment I realized, is like, dude, being a Ranger is physically hard.
Yeah.
It can be emotionally hard, but we always know what needs to happen.
Right.
Hey, assault that mountain and take that bunker. Okay. Yeah. That's going to be physically hard. It's going to be emotionally hard. It's going to be dangerous, but I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm going this direction and I need to assault that bunker.
Yeah.
Everything we did in the military was pretty clearly defined of where we needed to be, what we needed to be doing. And even though a lot of times it was difficult, you still knew the mission. Dude, being a parent, you don't know the mission.
Yeah.
Because every day it's something new and you don't know what the fuck.
Dude, it's guerrilla warfare. I mean, if you want to put it into those terms that you can understand, yeah, it's not conventional. It is guerrilla warfare. It's psyops. It's all of that. And there is no answer. And your answer for your kid and your relationship is not the answer for my kid.
Exactly.
Like, and that's hard when and not so much that because we think black and white of like, well, this is the problem, here's the solution, but because of our past successes at applying that formula and succeeding,
you expect success for yourself.
You expect it to continue because, like, well, I've had adversity and I've applied this formula and I fucking got through it. I just didn't quit. I just put one foot in front of the next. So that is going to get me through this. Well, it very well might, but what if it doesn't? Now what are you left with? What are your options, right? And then comes in the, how we're raised and the emotional, the tough guy thing and all that. It's like, you introduce that component, and if we're not in a position to be honest with ourselves and confront some of the true causes of this, like, it's self-destruct mode, dude. It's like it's easier to eat a bullet than to dig into who I am, how I feel, talking about all these things, because I feel like that shit is trained out of us, man.
Dude,
Like
emotional vulnerability
yeah.
is like probably the apex of strength. And
Yeah.
it's the last thing that a lot of us want to do.
Right.
And because, dude, being vulnerable, I mean, it's almost like a psychological version of like walking out into an open field. Like
Right.
from a tactical standpoint, like if you're taking a building, you're supposed to skirt the wood line and assault from whatever vantage point has the least amount of open terrain, right?
Yeah.
It's like walking out into an open field, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's what guys like us feel when they try and open up about their wife or when they try and understand why they're failing as a parent. You're walking into that open field and you just feel like you're vulnerable from everywhere.
So I'm even gonna draw a connection to like you're talking about coming from a standpoint that you're even acknowledging that vulnerability exists and that an emotion exists. Because I feel like from very early on, and this hit me up, like, so yeah, the military does a good job in kind of driving that out of us because it doesn't make us an effective war machine. But I think it starts way before that. And I think in the way we're raised can have an effect to where we're drawn to the military. And why there's so many veteran suicides, I was just kind of like, I'm not a psychoanalyst. I don't fucking have statistics, but I'm just like kind of drawing things. I'm like, maybe this makes sense. Let me entertain this. But like how we're raised, you struck a note with me when you were like, hey man, my dad, he's tough love. I didn't hear I love you until like I was an adult, right? And I'm like, fuck man, like I can relate to that, right? Like, oh, that's interesting. And I was kind of in the same boat. I had, not to go like too far off, but just like for some frame of reference here, like I had a stepdad, SF dude, like hardcore fucking manly man. That was the example, right? I never got that I love you thing. I never got that acknowledgement, never got it. Never think I needed it, right? I just went on every day. This is my normal. I don't need that, whatever. And then I had
you don't even really think about it.
You don't even realize it. I did on the other, like my biological dad, who I still talk to, but it wasn't a very daily interaction. I did understand that I was loved and there was like some of that support, but the main dominant male figure in my life, I didn't get that. And what that did, that set me up for success in regiment. That set me up for success in the military. That gave me the survival skill to succeed the path that I took. And even more so, unpacking some of this shit today, it makes it hard to admit that maybe that wasn't the best model to now enter this chapter of my life of dealing with other people, of like not in combat, not in this unit, right? It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, dealing with women and raising a family.
Women, raising family,
or,
right.
Or also even a professional career where you're surrounded by a whole spectrum of different personalities.
Right.
As opposed to the regiment where we were basically all interchangeable. We're like the same human cloned to a certain extent. You know?
Dude. Yeah. So I've just been like on this freaking course of like just understanding that truth as I see, or my way of which I believe things, maybe it's all fucked, right? So if I just kind of look at it in that perspective of maybe it's fucked, and I can unpack how I was raised or how I think, maybe that can shed some light on and give me some closure to adjust to normal life. Because you were saying, let me back up a little on veteran suicide, right? You called out 3 reasons, like, hey man, I think here's some 3 factors that are influencing why this is such a big deal. And yes, you do have collateral damage, civilians getting killed, horrible thing, right? But I don't think that's the major cause. It can be some.
Yeah, you're saying the terrible things people saw in war aren't necessarily what's leading to them killing themselves 10 years later, and I agree.
I agree with you to that, right? And then you also mentioned the survivor's guilt piece of like now your buddy on your team through your door, right? Like he died and you survived. That's tough, right? Like,
Yep.
so, and that can attribute, sure, right? But not everyone's experiencing that exact survivor's guilt thing. And then the third thing you were saying was just assimilating.
Yeah.
When you get out, like just figuring it out now
I think
that you're
that's
not
everything,
in the military.
man.
I think so too.
I think that's also why you're getting guys that were never even in combat MOSs, that never even saw stuff.
Yeah.
They're coming home with what they call PTSD issues. And they'll be like, well, maybe it's because the fob he was on got hit by a mortar one time. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
He's going through the same disconnect
Yeah. Yeah.
that everybody leaving the military goes through.
We are that tribal urge to be a part of something better than yourself in order to feel worth, to earn that respect as a man, to earn that respect as a combat, hero, quote unquote, right? Like, you set yourself out and you become a part of this group. And then when you take that away,
There's a void.
And that, I think that is challenging. And you even mentioned too, like, well, what can we do? Like, get involved with something, right? Like jujitsu, shit. I was told myself I wasn't going to say that word in your.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but you did.
God damn it. So
now that you mentioned jiu-jitsu.
Moya brand.
Hell yeah, dude. That's right.
Yeah. But
no, but it can be jiu-jitsu. It can be like with Toby, it's racing mountain bikes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be physical. You can fucking join a chess club, or you can build like a network of people that, I mean, to go back to what we were talking about in the beginning, prepping. Like, you have to have something to give your energy to that makes you feel important, that makes you feel like you're surrounding yourself with other people that fill that void.
Yep.
And if you don't have that, if all you have is your wife and your kids,
right.
And yes, they are obviously the foundation of your social network and the most important.
Yep.
But it has to be bigger than that. It has to be bigger than that. Because throughout time, throughout the history of planet Earth, people would go on hunting expeditions, or they would go on raiding expeditions, and like the wives and the kids would stay back and take care of themselves. Yeah. And then you would go partake on these dangerous and difficult missions with a band of men, and they needed to rely on each other. Yeah. And so in order to survive, in order to eat, in order to stay warm, you had to go out and partake in these arduous tasks with other people. And that's why I think that like chemical bond evolved over time, is because part of the human experience, it became very apparent that in order to succeed, you need to rely on the people to your left and your right.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone, period.
That chemical dependence thing is actually an interesting thought, because I mean, food, water, shelter, right? But this sense of belonging, this sense of
the emotional
worth,
need.
Yeah. That could be equally, if not more of a factor to what drives us. Like,
I think it's more
what gets us out of bed.
I might be speaking out of my ass. This might be complete rumor. Believe it to the Russians. I've heard the Russians have done experiments where they raise babies with no affection. So they're getting the food they want. Right. They're warm, but I don't know if they die or if they just don't develop. Yeah. But I've heard that it just leads down a path to failure. Right. So and it's not surprising.
No, dude, man.
When you emotionally connect with someone, man or woman. Yeah. And it's someone that you feel like, oh wow, this person should be in my tribe. Right. And it's no gay shit for but there's men that you meet and it's like, oh, this person he aligns with me on a lot of different things. Yeah. This guy should be part of my tribe. Yeah. You get that like emotional, like there's like a dopamine response. Yeah. And especially with a woman, when you connect with a female, your brain feels that chemical dump that's like, yes, this woman needs to be part of your tribe. Yeah. Well, that's not a decision. That's something on a biological level. Yeah. That's like, that keeps people connected. It's a real thing. So what has gone, I'm in total agreement with that avenue, right? Of like, where does this come from? And it's not just vets. This is men. This is women. Everybody.
This is anybody,
Human
right?
beings.
Like we're struggling, or we're if you come to a chapter in your life where now you're up against where your normal way of getting through things is not applying and it's not working. So I kind of like, I'm always about like the why, right? So I like the thoughts of the biological aspect, like the chemical aspect that you're talking about, that in relation to tribe and who's going to be in yours. But I also, going back to how we were raised, I think what happens, so like, does that mean then if we don't have the tribe that we won't survive, right? So like, yeah, there is a standpoint, but I mean like mentally, like if you take the life raft of jiu-jitsu, of mountain biking, of whatever it is, right? Like, okay, I just left the military. I had this group that we were in tune. I mattered. They mattered to do anything for. Now I'm not with that anymore. I need something to fulfill that, right? So then I find insert hobby A, right? Mm-hmm. With the tribe and all that shit. But I'm questioning of if even that's a Band-Aid. Like, why do I need something, anything outside of myself to be locked on facing fucking life? Like, why can't I just be solo? Like why, right? And so, and because of that, that starts and again, I'm not a fucking shrink or anything, but I start going down this path of what our initial belief system is from, toddlerhood or being raised, like how we were raised. Like we're raised to think like very linear, right? Like we don't teach kids how to fucking be happy. Like my parents didn't say like, hey, happiness is the goal and this is how you're going to try to achieve it so you can enjoy your life. No, it's how the fuck do you graduate so you can earn money, make a job, be successful. And successful to them, they didn't like you have to have a lot of money. No, you just have to be able to support yourself, right? And so we get on this trip, and if you combat that, so one, we're getting the message that like in order to be worthy, you have to perform.
Yeah.
And then we're given the tools by our fathers of like, well, it's a fucking dangerous world out there. So you know what? I'm going to make this dude so he can survive. So they make us a survivor. They push emotion out. They push all that shit out. And then we go on living and we succeed and we're figuring out the game of life, right? But what's happening is we're developing our self-worth on something outside of ourselves. I have to be a part of this organization. I have to be doing this. I have to be accomplishing that. I have to have succeeded in this. I have to be with this tribe, with this group or whatever. So we start relying on this thing. So the second that goes away, you get injured, or now we're old.
Feel lost again.
It's the same thing, right? So I'm just like, well, what the fuck, dude? So
what is, I guess what you're saying is, instead of outlining either like the path and to help you find peace with who you are, you're saying define the end goal first and then figure out a path to get there.
Yeah.
Because, that's kind of what I'm taking out of it, because there are guys like Indian gurus that go into the mountains for 30 years by themselves and they meditate the whole time and do breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And they feel like they've reached spiritual enlightenment. And that is fulfilling to them.
Right.
So there is exceptions to people. Like there's Buddhists that go and live in the temples and they really isolate themselves from the rest of humanity and they focus on their journey. And it would appear that a lot of those people have reached spiritual enlightenment.
Right.
But spiritual enlightenment for me versus one of those guys or versus you or versus the next person, it could be very different things that we need to experience as people in order to find our own personal happiness.
Yeah.
I know for me, if I went into the mountains alone, and sometimes I do walk into the mountains alone.
Yeah.
Because it is a feeling of like decompression where it's just you versus the elements and you with your own thoughts. But to do that for a sustained amount of time, I don't think that would point me like spiritually and emotionally in a good direction.
Right.
I think eventually it would start to point me in a bad direction.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of like individuality, man. Like we choose our path. We decide what that path is for me. You decide what that path is for you.
But a lot of people aren't choosing their path based on what's going to elevate them, like spiritually or emotionally. A lot of people choose that path based on what's going to pay the bills and what kind of car they want.
Or what's going to satisfy success in the eyes of those people I've been trying to impress my whole life.
Yeah.
What is the way? How am I going to get that I love you, that acceptance from my dad? How am I going to get the, hey, this guy is a badass, right? Like how am I going to feel that without, I don't know, how am I going to feel that on my journey? And I think for me, so my drive to not quit in RIP and then Ranger School and all these other just things in life was that I didn't realize it at the time, but at a young age, I was setting to make my mark on the world, to prove not just to myself, but to everyone else around me that, like, look, motherfuckers, I matter, and I'm going to show you how much I matter. And if I had failed, there was a part of my brain or whatever in belief, and this is just me speaking, if you relate to it out there, cool. If, whatever, you're like, man, Dave's on his fucking ferry boat or whatever, man, like, that's fine. But we're just having a conversation here, and this is kind of where I'm exploring. But had I failed at any of those, then that would have meant I'm fucking worthless.
Yeah.
At some point in my thinking. So therefore, that's why I didn't quit. It wasn't
That's
because
why quitting wasn't an option.
It's not an option, because for me to quit would admit to myself that I am not worthy of recognition
from the people I want.
From people I want recognition from. Dude, I was just watching that Michael Jordan documentary. Like, I'm not huge into sports, but it was done well, and it hit me. Dude, he was like one of 12 kids, and in that bit, as he was raising, he goes, yeah, I wanted my dad to notice me, so I was always in competition with my brothers to whip their ass and beat them in basketball or whatever, because I wanted his attention, because he wasn't giving it to anybody, right? And I was like, huh.
Dude, we're probably hitting on something pretty. I wonder.
That's interesting.
I wonder what percentage of the special operations community had a dad that raised them on tough love and was not emotionally available.
Right.
Like, I was afraid of my dad growing up.
Yeah.
Afraid of him.
Yeah.
Like, and dude, he supported me and he fed me and I never wanted for anything.
Yeah.
And he didn't abuse me or anything crazy.
Right.
But he wasn't emotionally available.
My brothers and I would argue, 3 brothers, we would argue of whose turn it was to ask our dad if we could go play.
Just to get that one sentence with him?
That was it. No. We would argue because nobody wanted to approach him because he was so emotionally distant that you didn't know if he was going to be tough. And I'm like, no, I asked him last time. You ask him. No, man, I fucking asked him. I'm not asking him. Like,
it's your turn, man.
It's your turn. Dude, I can't get my kids away from me if I wanted fucking 5 seconds to go take a shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're always up my ass, and I kind of judge how I'm parenting off of that. Like, I'm someone that they want to be around.
I think about this all the time, and I also think that is why I am blessed/cursed with 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the correct way to raise a young man.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about it, and I've wanted a boy for a long time because I think that's a journey that I would enjoy.
Yeah.
But I never got one, and I think I never got one.
Yeah.
Because I'm not emotionally ready to raise one. Because here's the thing. It's a balance that I don't understand yet. And I've thought a lot about it because my dad was really hard on me.
Yeah.
And he didn't show me love. And even though, like, I look back on my childhood, I had a good childhood.
Yeah.
I had a very supportive mother.
Yeah, dude, your family's awesome, man.
My family's cool people. But emotionally, we were very disconnected for a long time. But the flip side of that is, because when you hear that, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't sound good. That poor little boy. He never heard I love you.
Oh,
like, I'm not attaching a lot of negativity to it because over the years, I'm pretty proud of the person that I've grown into.
Yeah.
And so I was successful in the military. I was successful as a police officer until I made an 8-minute video. But I was successful as a contractor. Like, every team that I went on overseas, I was met with open arms. I worked hard. I built good relationships with the team. And to this day, a lot of those guys are still close with me. So there's a lot of who I am that I'm proud of. Now, obviously, there's a lot of who I am that I want to see become better. But I look at my journey, a lot of which was dictated. My foundation was laid by my father.
Yep.
And I think, okay, even though he did it in a way that didn't feel good,
right.
At the end of the day, I feel like I've developed into a pretty good, moral, ethical, and successful man. And if you look at anything that we do, anything that you do that the back end is success, there's pain in it. If you want to get fit, guess what? Running wind sprints at the track fucking hurts.
Yep.
If you want to get smart, sitting up at night and studying, that's a version of pain in itself.
Dude.
And the same thing emotionally. Like, if I want to be successful on the back end, maybe I have to feel some pain on the front end. And so maybe my dad's formula was exactly what I needed.
Yeah. I don't, in the same way too, when I say like how we were raised is fucked, I feel that way too. Like, well, how I was raised got me here, right? Like, I'm still breathing. I'm still navigating. Like, I love my life. Like, I know
you got a good family. You got a good career.
Dude. And not only that, but I mean, like, yeah, shit's nuts, right? But dude, I could wake up, man, and I don't know, some dude, maybe it was Shakespeare or some shit. It's like, there is no good in the bad or good or bad in the world, only thinking that makes it so. And that really is true, man. It's like we assign a value to something. Oh, that's good or that's bad. Well, we don't fucking know. The jury's still out, dude. We don't know until we're fucking taking the dirt nap and can actually see and reflect on the life to go, oh, that actually worked out good for me, man. Like you mentioned, getting your ass kicked. You could still count the times of when you got your ass handed to you in jiu-jitsu, and even though you failed, right, in the moment, you lost control, that was the catalyst to continue
exactly
to succeed, right?
Yeah.
So
that was the catalyst to get me into it,
right?
Because I felt such a deficiency, in the ability to fight. You know,
so that's kind of goes to what we initially were talking about with like all this craziness going on in the world right now. Like, yeah, everything's fucked, but okay, all right, it's all fucked. Got it. Like, all right, is that good? Is that bad? Like, adversity brings growth, right? And so how is this right now adversity? Where's the growth coming? I don't know, man. I don't know. So that thing of like, I don't know enough to just be pessimistic about it is, and so to your point of like, did the way my dad raised me, is that bad? Good? I don't know. But what I'm trying to challenge myself to do, and maybe others that are dealing with feeling of not being with the good old boys, of not being in that unit anymore, not doing something, not being around people that know you, because that's what it's like when you're on these teams. You're with a guy, you don't even have to explain shit. You guys see eye to eye, but then you're an outsider, dude, everywhere you go. And so it's hard to find self-worth when the people outside of you don't understand the kind of person that you are. When you're on a team, everybody knows the kind of people that everyone is. So it's easy to operate like that.
I think you just hit the nail on the head there. Is like your sense of self-worth is derived by the people around you.
Yeah.
Like they actually give that to you.
Yeah.
Not even like subconsciously. They give that to you by you being a successful part of their tribe.
Right. So I am just trying, before someone cleans their ears out with the Glock, right? I just want to challenge everyone, just men in general, to just get rid of the good and the bad, right? Just take a deep look and go, man, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And go down that road and talk to someone about it. Like the therapy thing, like that's tough, dude. That's hard to do. And because, dude, I ran across, so I brought this fucking quote book with me, right? Like I'm not a big religious dude or anything, but over the years when I come across like some knowledge, I go, oh, that like strikes a chord. And in my pursuit of like trying to be a better person in like a relationship, and I was reading this book, dude, this guy, Terry Real, I don't know much of his stuff. He does like some marriage stuff and some healing stuff, but like, dude, I read this shit on emotions, man, and it fucking struck a chord with like how we're raised. And it says, we don't raise, nor have we ever raised boys and men to be intimate partners, but to be strong, competitive performers, right? It's like, so that's how we're being raised. Like,
Yeah.
you need to fucking survive. And the pressure to be hard, logical, independent, and stoic all too often sets men up to be emotionally distant, arrogant, numb to their own feelings, and unconcerned about everyone else's. Then this is the real part, as well as contemptuous of vulnerability and weakness. So that last part punched me in the face. It was like contemptuous of vulnerability and weakness. And like, I was like, God damn right. Because if you're weak, you're a pussy. If you're vulnerable, you're dead, right? Like these are things you can't survive with those feelings. So what do we do when we raise up? We're taught that having feelings, being vulnerable, showing weakness does not get you ahead, does not make you a man, right? Like that has gotten me to survive up to this point. But then when I take that mentality into a relationship where I don't even know how to feel, let alone how to communicate feeling, what I'm feeling. Like step one is, how do I even feel? I push shit so far away. Like prior to, you're saying like crying, right? Like, holy fuck, dude. Prior to kids, yeah, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've cried in my life. That's fucked up.
That is fucked up.
That's fucked up. Like I could tell you every time, and I can put myself back to those times. Like that's not normal, dude. Right? And I'm just here to say, like, and you know, yeah, part of me feels like being vulnerable now and just kind of admitting to like this. Like, part of me feels like I want to throw the disclaimer out there, like, yeah, dude, but I'll still fucking dump one in your brain bucket if you come to fucking fuck me and my family up, right?
Yeah.
Like, because that is how I feel. Like I have the skills. Like, yeah, dude.
And even the desire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That desire is still there too.
You mentioned excitement of the revolutionary.
Dude.
There is some excitement there. So my thing is just like, dive into yourself, talk to somebody. Like I remember years ago, dude, and this is how I know you were growing as I was growing, because I heard you talk about therapy, man. And I rewound back to when you were like, I don't need to pay somebody. No one knows me better than me.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
that was just putting up walls.
Yeah. And I get
it.
Yeah. And I get that thinking, but at the same time, like, dude, if my car's busted, I'm not going to go to the fucking dentist.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to go to the mechanic that sees 1,000 of those and can identify really quick, even though if he just has to tell me how I need to fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So these people, like, we're a biological creature. There's patterns. And there's a way of studying those patterns, and people go to fucking school to study those patterns of humanology.
And God forbid somebody understands something a little better than you do.
Dude, I talked to.
Like, is that really an abstract idea?
Yeah, exactly.
The fuck out of here.
So I'm encouraging folks to like just go talk to someone, and someone not connected with your family, so you're not worried about judgment. A total stranger. It is helping. And when you said you wonder how many people in the special operations community had that father figure, or that someone that they were trying to define, you know, to show like, hey, I'm a man, like this is how I'm gonna impress upon the earth and my lineage of, like, you know, how I'm gonna be raised and how I'm gonna go forth. When I was just diving through some of this shit with a therapist, they were just like, oh yeah, I mean, you know, I see it 1,000 times. Mostly, you know, those that don't feel like they're getting enough attention in the home or are loved by the dad. A lot of them are gravitate towards special operations community, or if they don't go in the military, you know, they try to get on this special team as cops or firefighters or whatever. And there's this long. She's just like, oh yeah, it's common.
I've seen this
all the fucking
and my
time.
therapist told me the same thing. She's like, it wasn't 10 minutes into our first meeting when she was talking to me about these different things, and I was like, this fucking bitch knows me better than I know myself.
Yeah.
And I said that to her. I was like, this is bizarre.
I call her a bitch. I say
probably not. But and she looks at me and she goes, I only deal with special operations combat veterans. Yep. That's my piece of the pie here.
Okay.
And she goes, you guys are not all that different. You might think you are. Guess what? You're almost all the same.
Yeah, dude.
But no, listening to you talk about like the different emotional states, like how you would deal with emotions regarding your wife. How would you deal with emotions regarding your kids? How would you deal with the emotions being on the battlefield? And it made me think about something like military 101 is selecting the right tool for the job. Like, I might need a 203 gunner to hit this bunker. And if I don't have a 203, I can hit that with 5.56 all day, and it's not going to do anything, right?
Yeah.
I might need to call for an airstrike. I might need that tool. If I need to reach out and touch someone, we might need to rely on one of the sniper rifles.
Yeah.
Like the military, or if we're going right into a room right around the corner, I'm going to fucking frag it first, right? You're using the tool for the job based on the problem that's in front of you.
Yeah.
Dude, why is it difficult to apply that emotionally? Like when I'm dealing with my woman, I might need to have a different emotional state that I bring to the table when I'm dealing with my children, when I'm dealing with the battlefield.
Dude, you can't do it. And that's the thing, is like there's a block. So you weren't given the tools to do that initially. Your dad set you up for success, or your family, or whatever, your upbringing set you up for success on many levels. But applying that same thing now doesn't work, right? Like this goes to like just fucking thinking for yourself. Like the world used to be fucking flat, and we figured that out, right? We're still teaching kids like Columbus.
Wait. A little caveat on that.
Yeah.
Flat earthers fucking hate me. I don't know. Bro, getting a little bit of a presence on the internet is a bizarre thing.
Dude, that's weird.
Because you bring out the crazies.
Right.
And, dude, I simply referenced wanting to sail the world, because that's a bucket list item for me.
Yeah.
Buy a boat, sail the world.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fucking radical,
Yeah, dude.
right? And I grew up on a boat, so it'd also be nostalgic. And dude, the flat earthers came after me. You're talking about sailing around the world. You're pushing your agenda. Science doesn't support. And I'm showing my wife, and we're laughing. And I don't respond to any of them.
No, you can't, man.
Fuck you.
No, that's good. That's good entertainment.
But dude, yeah, they think you're coming after them if you even reference going around the world.
Yeah, dude.
All right, sorry to go off on a
No.
tangent.
That's perfect. I got a lot of shit on tangents about thinking for yourself and shit.
Yeah. So I cut you off with my little flat Earth tangent, but anyhow,
it's your show. You could cut anybody off. No, man. So this is kind of hard because it can go round and round, but what I'm trying to do is like we get this belief system that's in us, right? And a lot of hardened vets, like dudes that have killed more people than fucking smallpox, which I've been introduced to somebody like that one time. You know, it was some fucking hard ass dude. I'm like, hey man, I'm Dave. What's up? And then some guy cut in and said, this guy's killed more people than smallpox. And I was like,
cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm still Dave. Hi, how's it going? Anyways, dude, but all these guys out there that are way tougher than me, like I'll give it to you, no problem. You guys are tougher than me. But I know a lot of people are be like, fuck that, that's bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But to your point of selecting the right tool, right? We're at this chapter now in our life. Like all the tools that we have in our quiver are not getting us through these marriages. They're not getting us through this fucking life. Okay. And they're forcing us to feel like there's no way out except for just fucking ending it. Okay. And that's a total viable solution. But we are evolving with information on so many fronts. Right. And this is kind of a side deal here, but I'm just trying to drive home the point of like, we did believe that the earth was flat, right? And we're like, dude, it's fucking round. So it was common belief that was the deal. It was common belief that Newtonian fucking physics of like, it works until now we have quantum physics. You go down so small, like all that shit goes out the fucking window, dude, right? Like we're mostly space, you know, no two items can occupy the same thing at the same time. No, they can. Or they're connected, or like all this shit's proven it. The double slit theory, which I Googled, by the way, after listening to that thing. And I think I might have went the wrong way. I just found a lot of scissoring. So I don't know if I spelled it correctly or what, but the thing is,
send me those links.
Yeah, I will. I'll send you. But the point is that how we're viewing shit of the past is not applicable anymore, right? We still teach kids Columbus fucking discovered America when we're like, dude, we know Viking settlements. Dude, Columbus died fucking before he even knew he was in a new area. He just still thought he was going to the fucking Indies, dude, right? Like Amerigo Vespucci. That's why it's America. He's the one who's like, nah, I've been to the Indies and these aren't fucking Indians, right?
So you're advocating tearing down all his statues?
I'm advocating all of that. Yeah, fuck him. So, yeah, dude. So just like we try to control our environment and make this flexible fucking world and life that we have, and we try to put it and compartmentalize it into these boxes. And for a warrior, it doesn't fit in that thinking to be like, I need to love myself. Right? Like
you're laughing, saying it right now.
Yeah,
because even verbalizing it into the microphone, there's a part of it that still feels silly.
It feels silly, dude. I feel horrible. Like you mentioned, what's the samurai book you talked about? The Book
of Five Rings.
Book of Five Rings, right?
Miyamoto Musashi.
To be the best warrior, you have to be skilled in all of the arts, right?
Yeah.
But in our culture, if a little bit of toughness is good, then a lot of toughness is better. Like we're linear thinking. So we've driven out all that emotional shit because it doesn't make us effective on battlefield. It doesn't make us an effective man of what our definition of success is as a man. Saying I love you to your kids, having them be emotionally stable into their adult years when they're ready to get settled, marry, like that's not on the forefront. It's survive, provide, make money, get your food, hunt and gather, like, right? So, right.
Well, and I think it's a hard cycle to break too, though, because you're raised a certain way.
Yeah.
You become who you become.
Yeah.
And you start to get locked into these patterns.
Yeah.
And hey, it's working. So why do I need to change it?
Right.
And then you start to believe that your way is the correct way. And I mean, through my 20s, I felt like I had it all figured out.
Yeah.
And it didn't come until some hard bouts of depression and some marital problems.
Yep.
And some things that made me have to look at myself and be like, you think you have it all figured out? But guess what? There's some big deficiencies in your life right now.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to step outside of that and be like, okay,
yeah,
who I thought I was, what I thought I knew, what I thought was the right approach to life and the right approach to relationships.
Right.
Well, it's not working for me.
Yeah.
So now what?
Yeah.
And that's happened to me enough times now up until the age of 40 where I'm comfortable saying, I don't know what the right thing is.
Good.
And good. I actually think that being open and unsure with yourself and who you are and where you're going and who you're going to be tomorrow, having that uncertainty is actually healthy. There's a quote that says like true wisdom is acknowledging you know nothing.
Yeah.
I love that because it's so true, because like the opposite of that is the guy that thinks he has everything figured out. And 9 times out of 10, that guy's a fuckstick.
Lao Tzu, I think it's the Tao Te Ching, ancient Chinese philosopher. I find it funny. He's like, to your point, the man who knows, or the man who knows says little. The man who doesn't know says a lot.
Uh-huh.
Right? And then I'm like, yeah, but didn't he just say that? Like, wait a minute. Right? So it's like,
maybe he wrote it down.
Yeah, maybe he wrote it. He didn't speak it out loud. But yeah, man. Like I think just opening up to the possibility that we don't have it figured out, that might benefit us in a way to where now that we're not living in combat at the second, we are trying to have loved ones, they like have feelings and you got to listen to them, and you got to figure out the difference between fixing their problems and just letting them vent their feelings. I don't know what venting feelings is or emotions, like, and how healthy that is when you just get something out. You're like, oh wow, I feel better just verbalizing that thing I was trying to just push down to a part of me that I never wanted to fucking raise again. So yeah, man. So I think, that's what I was just kind of wanting to just broach that subject. Like I don't have fucking answers, right? But I am on this journey.
Well, and if you had answers, you'd be kind of full of shit.
Totally full of shit. Yeah.
I think part of the solution is asking people to look inside themselves and open up about it. That's where they find their solutions. I can't fucking give you the playbook on what's going to fix your emotional well-being,
right,
or fix your marriage.
Yeah.
And I think the more guys that have been there, done that, opening up about this kind of opens the door for other people. Like I did a podcast with a guy named Tom Satterley, and I don't know, he wrote a book called All Secure.
Okay. I saw that down on your shelf.
Okay. Career unit guy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
His first operation was, his first real world op with the unit was Mogadishu. And then he stayed all through Afghanistan and Iraq, tons of combat, and it fucked him up emotionally. And he went through like 3 marriages, and he couldn't communicate with people. He got out of the unit, and he got out of the unit on bad terms as a unit sergeant major, right?
Okay.
So everything that he was stripped from him. And a dude at the highest level of being a fucking operational warrior spiraled out of control, wanted to kill himself.
Yeah,
and,
easily.
And I did a podcast with him. It wasn't on this podcast. It was on his show.
Yeah.
And it's called Mentors for Military, for those who are interested.
I'll check it out.
And, I mean, he's saying all the same shit that we're saying. And the guys that are willing to acknowledge it, that's the first step to then changing the trajectory of your life, changing the trajectory of your relationships, and starting to find yourself in a place where you can pursue happiness. And the more guys that do that, you're giving other people a pass to open up.
And if it makes it a little more easier to swallow on your palate, think of this as survival. Like because we're losing people to mental health issues, right? Of like depression, anxiety, not assimilating. People are dying because they feel like just ending it is a lot easier than facing it or trying to figure out a way with the right tools to go through it. So if you still want to be a survivor and a fighter, you're going to have to figure out different tactics during this time of your life in order to beat it, to win.
Yep. And not even to combat suicide, but just to combat quality of life.
Quality of life.
Because there's a lot of Rangers. We have our Brotherhood of a Scroll Facebook page where all Rangers past and present try and stay connected.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dudes in a dark place.
Yeah.
You can tell by their posts. You can tell by the pictures. You can look into their eyes.
Yeah,
and I'll show you a picture, and I'm not going to say his name, obviously, but there's a guy that we served with. He's broken.
Yeah.
And so maybe he'll never reach the point where he kills himself, but he's allowing these things that get their hooks into you and start to depress you and start to take away from your quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, dude. We're only halfway through this journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got another 40 years. And if you can't figure out a way to strip those things from you and move forward in a positive direction, either A, it ends with you looking down the barrel of your Glock, or B, equally as bad or maybe worse, is living 40 years in a depressed state.
Yeah.
You know? Like, who the fuck wants to do that?
Yeah, man. Yeah. My word to whoever that is, man, is like, dude, you've conquered so much shit. So why stop? Like, right? Like just look at this as another challenge. And we don't have the formula. We don't have the fucking tools. We were never given them. There are people out there that have tools or can help you get through those tools. You just got to start talking to people, man. Like, really. I mean, that is one thing. I don't know if it's a cure-all, but...
And you want to know one thing that's interesting, like people say, oh, talk about it. And it sounds kind of cliche.
Yeah, totally.
But it's empowering, dude. Like just sitting here for the last hour and a half talking to you now. This show might get downloaded by one person. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, right.
Let's say nobody fucking hears this.
Yeah.
The fact that we shared this back and forth.
Yeah.
Just gives you a little more permission to be vulnerable and to be you.
Yeah, man.
And it's fucking powerful, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think there's strength in just owning it, right? Like like we own it all the time. Or you're goddamn, I don't know, you showed up wasted day one at work, firearms instructor or something.
Yeah.
What'd you do? You fucking owned it, right? Because that's what you're taught to do. That's what you do. You fucking own it. Well, own the fact that you don't know what the fuck's going on with your life, and I'm gonna get someone from the outside, or just start entertaining the thought that even though fucking the earth was flat, worked for a long time, let's figure out a way to figure out that it's fucking round, right?
Yeah.
Like just for that simple fact of just entertain that possibility, and that will start you down a path that maybe you can start finding some peace. I don't know where that fucking peace is. I struggle with it every fucking day, dude. Just the feelings thing of even just to feel like that is a weird thing for me. And when he said that Terry Real quote or whatever, he said like, it's contemptuous. Like we have hatred for vulnerability and weakness, like in feeling and trained into us. Like that becomes a subconscious thing that we do. and we don't even know that we're doing it. It's
Yeah.
not like there's even like, I'm feeling this thing, so I'm going to push it down. No, it's a direct short circuit.
Yeah,
of
it's
where
a
it puts that.
subconscious, just
Yeah, dude.
gets compartmentalized here, goes into the file cabinet, boom.
Yeah. And the,
But I like how you said that it's something that you battle every day.
oh,
to
I
a
still
certain
do.
extent.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I'm not
Because
enlightened. I'm not fucking.
Think about anything that you do, like Jocko, up at 4:30, working out every day. Like, you have to acknowledge what struggles you need to face day in and day out, and that needs to be part of your routine.
Yeah.
And if your mental health is part of your routine and you're acknowledging it daily, and
Yeah.
maybe, and I'm not saying you fucking grovel and you focus on it and like you put it on a pedestal, but you just acknowledge it.
That's it. That's all it usually takes.
Just acknowledge it and know that this is part of your daily routine to be a better version of yourself tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking huge, man.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's that's cool, man. It's refreshing to have this conversation. And like I was saying, I'd be listening to your podcast and just this chapter. I mean, dude, we even, just on a funny note, like when we were kind of lost going to community college right after the military, trying to figure out, we were still fitting combat stuff into our daily life. Do you remember like how we would try to get the drop on each other, rolling around
Yeah.
the halls?
Yeah.
Right? Like we'd just be, oh, I'm going to my next class, and then there's Greg standing
Behind a piece of cover.
behind a piece of cover, like pied off, and he's got a beat on me. He's like, you're dead. Like, dude, we would like, that's awesome. Like, we're still seeking that community, right? But as we stray further apart, as we get families and we start going down this road, like that's not working anymore. Like, how do we figure it out? So, yeah, man, this shit's cool, dude.
Well, cool, man. Well, I think we just did 1 hour and 45.
Goddamn.
That's right about where I like to wrap it up.
Well, I'll make sure to download it so you got at least one.
Yeah. And, man, we didn't even get to all the shit going on in Portland.
No,
That's
dude.
part of your experiences, but
Yeah, maybe another time we can talk shit on all that.
I enjoyed you enough, just barely, and I don't want to stroke your ego, but I enjoyed this conversation enough that perhaps we'll invite you back on someday.
Maybe.
All right, so you got anything you want to leave anybody with?
Nah, dude. Except, just for the record, when we were, we have so many funny stories, but when we were in the military, one of your biggest regrets, you told me at one time that I pride myself in, is that you've never officially smoked me while you were my team leader.
While I was your NCO?
Yeah, and I remember this one time when we had our SOVs and Ranger Special Operations. It's a chopped up Land Rover. You were driving, and I was sitting behind you, and I kept taking the strap that the gunner up top would put his feet on, and I would unhook it off of the truck, and I would hook the back loop of your body armor. And because what we were doing, we were like getting to a blocking position.
We were doing dismount drills.
Yeah, we dismount real quick, right? Like, okay, stop, get out. And then you would go to get out with all your force, and you get yanked back, and you're like, God damn it. And I'm like, ha, I don't know, 2-3 times. Like, I definitely wore that joke out, but
bro, like, that's like most NCOs will start smoking their fucking guys.
oh yeah.
But you have to see the humor in it.
Dude.
And just because you're the brunt of that joke, everybody else sees that and is dying fucking laughing.
Yeah,
right?
and you know it's
so,
good. You
so
gotta
here's
give
the
it
thing.
credit.
If I get mad at you for that, I'm actually empowering you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so we
Yeah.
did these things
I would
called...
win then.
Yeah, you would win. So I had to just roll with the punches, right? We had these things called Ranger skits. Where,
oh, God, dude.
and I don't know if they still do skits or not, but it was when we were deployed or when we were on training missions where we were just isolated with the platoon or the company for days or weeks at a time. You would do Ranger skits just to entertain yourselves.
Yeah. No internet, people.
Yeah, exactly. No phones.
phones.
You weren't scrolling through Instagram.
Right.
You're sitting there with your platoon in some fucking clamshell on a fucking airfield, and all right, it's us. What do we do? So guys would do skits. And I remember Cecil. Remember Cecil?
Oh, yeah.
He did a skit of our PL. Do you remember this one? He was sitting in a lawn chair and he was reading a book and he was portraying our platoon leader as a homosexual. And so
that might have been before I got there.
So he was talking with a lisp and he was like holding his hand in a manner that looked feminine.
Right.
And he nailed it, right? It was hilarious. And the PL came unglued. And he like threw his hat on the ground. He's like, I know that they say during Ranger skits that you have immunity, but that's fucking bullshit. I've never been so disrespected in my entire life. Get out and start doing fucking push-ups, Cecil. And he lost his shit in front of the company, right? And it's like, right there, dude, you just missed the whole point.
Yeah.
You had a chance to
bond with your fucking
with
men.
the guys and laugh at yourself because he had some feminine qualities. And so Cecil attacked him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And dude, he lost it. And then it was Sergeant like Alexander and Sergeant Griffith, like the old school platoon sergeants.
Yeah.
They're like, Cecil, get up. Get up right now. There's no repercussions during skits. That's long established. And straight up just stepped on that lieutenant's dick.
Yeah.
Right?
As they should.
As they should, dude.
Yeah.
And as like, oh, so not only did you show yourself being like unable to contain your emotions, now you also just lost your authority because the platoon sergeants just stepped on your dick too.
Yeah, how'd that work out for you?
So
Jesus, dude.
So yeah, if you're a Ranger and you're listening and you want to take anything away from this episode, when people are busting your balls or they're fucking with you, just roll with the punches and laugh it off.
Yeah. Yeah, double it, right? Like take the fucking wind out of the sails. Like I don't know how many times being new in these fire departments, like I've already done the game, right? Being the new guy or fucking shit up, not knowing anything. So I'd roll into these places and not knowing anybody, getting ready for the hazing, whatever. I almost like welcome it. And I'm the first one to be like, oh man, I'm fucking new. I fucked that up. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, new guy. You don't know what you're doing because you're new. I'm like, oh, good one.
You're like, yeah, I just said that.
Just said that. Yeah. They're like, fuck, who is this guy? Yeah.
We can't even make fun of him because he makes fun of himself.
Yeah, he makes fun of himself first. I don't understand. I don't get this. Yeah. You know, I got a lot of adjusting into the civilian world kind of stories like that, dude, as I'm sure you do, coming from regiment and trying to operate in a group of
non-Rangers.
Non-Rangers. Anyways. All right, man.
All right, cool, man.
Dude.
I appreciate you coming up. And my 40th birthday's tomorrow, and you're sticking around and staying in town.
Yeah,
so
dude.
It's going to be a fun fucking weekend, man. It's been good.
It's not dirty 30. What's 40? Oh, Lordy. I don't know, dude.
All right, on that note, we're ending the show.
Later.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. That's a wrap.